Right now, you are overestimating yourself. Not a little, not false modesty, a systematic, measurable overestimation that has been replicated in hundreds of studies across dozens of countries. And the most unsettling part, you have no idea you're doing it. You think you're an above-average driver. You think you read people better than most. You think you have better logic, better taste, better judgment, better than the average person you pass on the street. And if you genuinely believe that right now, you might be exactly the person this video is about, because there is a paradox at the center of the human mind. This paradox has a name. It was discovered in a small room at Cornell University in 1999. And once you understand it, you will never look at yourself or anyone else the same way again. So sit with this for a second. David Dunning and Justin Kruger, Cornell University, a study with an understated title, Unskilled and Unaware of It. They gave students a series of tests: logic, grammar, humor. Then they asked each student one question: where do you think you rank compared to everyone else in this room? The results were brutal. The students at the very bottom of the class, the worst performers, rated themselves dramatically higher than reality, somewhere in the 12th percentile, and believed they were in the top 15%. Not because they were lying, not because they were arrogant, but because their brains lacked the very tool needed to detect that they were doing it wrong. And that's the real question. Not, why are some people stupid? But why though? Why does the human brain, the most complex machine in the known universe, have a design flaw this fundamental? Dunning and Kruger didn't stop at proving incompetent people overrate themselves. They wanted to know, can this error be fixed? So they did something brutally simple. They took the lowest scoring students and showed them the work of the highest scoring students. Nothing else, just look. What happened next is the key to the entire mechanism. After seeing what good work actually looks like, the lowest performers dropped their self-assessments dramatically, not because they got better. They were exactly as incompetent as before, but now they had a second ruler, and for the first time, they realized their first ruler was broken. Here's the mechanism behind it. To know that you're bad at something, you need a certain amount of skill in that very thing. A bad writer needs real writing skill to recognize that their sentences are clunky, their arguments circular, their grammar loose. Without that skill, you have no tool to evaluate yourself. Your brain looks at your own work and says, yeah, that seems fine, because the same broken ruler that produced the bad work is the only ruler you own. Read that again. Competence in any skill requires a meta-skill, the skill of evaluating the skill itself. And when the first layer is weak, the second layer, the part of your brain responsible for catching your own mistakes, is also weak. Because they're built from the same foundation, you cannot catch a logical error if you don't understand logic deeply enough to spot one. So incompetence is not just doing poorly, it is doing poorly, while simultaneously losing the ability to notice. Two failures for the price of one. Imagine you're holding a ruler. You use it to measure everything: your desk, your window, your own height. Every measurement feels right, every number feels solid. But your ruler is 90 centimeters long, and you think it's a full meter. Every measurement you have ever taken is off by 10%. And you have no way to know, because that ruler is the only tool you own. This is exactly what happens inside the mind of someone who lacks competence in a domain. Their brain is not deliberately deceiving them. It simply does not possess the equipment to detect its own errors. And here's where it gets darker. This is not a minor bug at the edge of psychology. It is a structural flaw, built into the architecture of thought. The very thing you use to think cannot think about itself accurately, not without help. So why would evolution allow this? Rewind 200,000 years. You're a hunter-gatherer on the African savanna. Your survival depends on fast decisions, not accurate ones. Is that a leopard in the brush? Is this berry poisonous? Is the stranger from the neighboring tribe friend or threat? In that world, hesitation kills. Confidence, even false confidence, keeps you alive. A brain that constantly asks, "Am I really sure about this?" gets eaten. The brain that acts first and questions later survives to reproduce. So our brains evolved a default bias. Feel certain faster than you feel uncertain. The sensation of, "I know this," arrives almost instantly. The sensation of, "Wait, I might be wrong," requires conscious effort to activate. This is not a bug. This is a feature, selected over hundreds of thousands of years. The problem is, we no longer live on the savannah. But our brains haven't received the update. And then there's the dopamine. Every time you feel certain about something, whether you're right or wrong, your brain releases a small hit of reward. The feeling of "I'm right" is chemically addictive. And like any addiction, you need higher doses over time. You need to feel more certain about more things until you become the person in the meeting, the person in the comment section, the person who never says, "I'm not sure." Here's the part most people miss. The Dunning-Kruger effect is not just about not knowing you're bad. It is a self-reinforcing loop. Every time you say something wrong with total confidence and nobody corrects you, your brain gets a dopamine hit. I said that so convincingly. I must know what I'm talking about. And here's why this loop doesn't self-correct. The people around you usually don't correct you. Correcting someone who speaks loudly and confidently is socially expensive. It creates friction. It makes you look like the difficult one, the nitpicker. So most people, most of the time, just nod. They withdraw quietly. And the confidently wrong person leaves the conversation with their beliefs completely intact, even strengthened. Meanwhile, the person who actually knows what they're talking about, the one who survived the crash we'll get to, sits quietly. They say, "It depends." They add caveats. They don't fill the room with certainty, and so real knowledge never enters the conversation. Multiply this by thousands of interactions every day across society, and you begin to understand why bad ideas survive far longer than they should, and why accurate, nuanced perspectives often lose, simply because they're delivered with appropriate humility rather than manufactured certainty. But there is a flip side to this effect, and it is equally cruel. Dunning and Kruger found that the people who are genuinely excellent, the students at the very top, suffer from the opposite error. They systematically underestimate themselves. They assume that tasks that are hard for them must be easy for everyone, and they tend to overestimate others, assuming everyone around them must be operating at the same level. This creates one of the most uncomfortable dynamics you will ever witness. The competent person sits quietly, saying, "I could be wrong." The incompetent person fills the silence with absolute confidence. And guess who the room tends to believe? In a follow-up study, Dunning and Kruger showed participants videos of other people performing the same task. The low performers, after seeing what genuine competence looks like, adjusted their self-assessments downward, just like in the first study. But here's the crucial detail. They only adjusted after they were shown the evidence. Without that intervention, they would have continued living in the illusion of their own competence, possibly forever. In other words, the solution to Dunning-Kruger is not becoming smarter. It is seeing what good actually looks like. And here's where the whole thing turns over on you. Because there is a version of all of this happening right now. In your hand, on your screen, every single day. Social media algorithms do not care about accuracy. They care about engagement. And nothing generates engagement like a person speaking in absolutes, with zero hesitation. So the platforms where most people get their information are structurally designed to amplify the voices of those least equipped to know they might be wrong, while the quieter, more careful, more accurate voices get buried under hedges and nuance, things that do not perform well in a 15-second clip. But it doesn't stop at strangers online. Think about every argument you've had with someone you love, where they spoke with such absolute certainty that you began to doubt your own entirely reasonable position, even when you had the facts on your side. That is the Dunning-Kruger mechanism, wearing the costume of a relationship dynamic, not a debate. Confidence has a way of borrowing credibility it never earned. And most people, even smart people, even you, have at least once mistaken someone's certainty for their accuracy. That sounds bleak. A brain that cannot trust itself. The loudest people are often the most wrong, and the algorithms are amplifying all of it. It isn't. Because the same research that discovered this flaw also discovered how to fix it. And the fix is shockingly simple. Exposure. Just seeing what real competence looks like, even once, is enough to recalibrate your entire self-assessment. This is why the best people in any field almost always include some version of "it's complicated" somewhere in the conversation. They have seen the peak of the mountain. They know how high it is. And that humility is not weakness. It is the most accurate reflection of reality. There are 3 things you can do starting today. 1. Be suspicious of your own certainty, especially the certainty that arrives quickly, without internal friction. Real understanding usually comes with, "But wait, what about this case?" If you feel zero friction about a complex topic, that's not necessarily a sign you understand it deeply. It might be a sign your understanding is too shallow for the complexity to have appeared yet. 2. Practice saying, "I don't know," out loud in real conversations. It will feel uncomfortable the first few times. That discomfort is the signal you're doing it right. 3. Ask yourself, in the area where you are most confident, what evidence would change your mind? If you cannot answer that question, if there is no evidence you can imagine that would move your position, that is not a belief. That is a closed loop. And closed loops are the environment where blind confidence thrives. So the real question isn't, why do other people fall for Dunning-Kruger? It's, which stage are you in? Are you at stage 1, where everything is simple, and you haven't yet discovered the mountain of complexity waiting for you? Are you at stage 2, where you've just realized how much you don't know, and that feeling is genuinely awful? Or have you made it through the crash and into stage 3, where your confidence has been tested by complexity and still holds? None of us are at the same stage in every domain. The same person can be stage 4 in their career. Careful, nuanced, with all the right caveats, and simultaneously stage 1 in a completely different area, speaking with the same absolute certainty they would never permit themselves in their actual field. So here's what to do. This week, when you catch yourself about to say something with total confidence, pause for 1 second. Ask yourself, do I actually know this? Or does it just feel right because I've never examined it closely? You don't need to announce this to anyone. Just start noticing. Because the moment you can look at your own certainty and ask why though, that's the moment you've graduated from stage 1. Now, what's one thing you used to believe with absolute certainty that you later found out was wrong? Drop it below. Let's see what your crash looked like. And that's why. New question drops Tuesday and again Friday. Keep asking.